Welcome, everyone, to the Red Raider Report. And Don and Adam, Texas Tech gets a 58-28 win over the Kansas State Wildcats in Manhattan. And, I don't think anybody's going to argue the point that Graham Harrell wasn't one of the best, all time at Texas Tech. But, from a stats standpoint now, Don, you can definitely say that after he set the career mark for yardage.
Both at Texas Tech and within the Big 12, and here in the next couple of weeks he probably jumps up a few more spots in career passing in the NCAA. He's to number 7 now, and if he, provided that he doesn't have an injury, he should finish second all-time in NCAA career passing yardage. But you're right, he did break Cliff Kingsbury's career passing mark at Texas Tech on Saturday, and just a fantastic performance. 6 touchdown passes and 1 touchdown rushing, and didn't throw any interceptions.
And Adam, we talked about last week, you and I kind of maybe put some sensations out there that we thought this game might be a little closer, and it just didn't turn out that way. After K-State got a little bit of momentum back after Leach went for it on 4th and 1, inside his own territory, they really responded well and put that game out of reach in a hurry.
That's right, Zach. I'm kind of still trying to take my foot out of my mouth right now. I picked Texas Tech to lose last week. They hadn't shown anything up to that point, but they really impressed me with the way they went on the road. It was a close game early on, but they really pulled away, did what they wanted to do. Graham Harrell was especially impressive. He's had some games in the past where he's gone on the road and maybe laid an egg. He didn't do that. He came out and had one of his best games all year. So it was a pretty big statement by Texas Tech. Kansas State, I don't think is going to be, definitely not going to be one of the best teams in the Big 12. I think they're in it for a long year. But it was a good performance by Texas Tech, and they made me a little bit more of a believer. I think they're going to be able to go on the road and win some games like that.
And Don, you talk about Lilo. A person who Leach self-admittedly said was in the doghouse. He came out in a big way Saturday against Kansas State.
Yeah, because it's been a very, I started to say up and down season for him so far. Actually, it's been a whole lot more down than it was up, because back in preseason practice, he spent some time on the scout team, and then after the regular season started, they demoted him back to scout team again. He missed the game against SMU. But a guy who had a lot of ability that folks in West Texas know about from his high school days at Abilene. Very productive wide receiver, and kind of breaks out. Tech has not had just a whole bunch of production from that split end position this year, and Lilo didn't have a whole bunch of catches on Saturday. Only caught 3 balls, 23 yards, but he wound up in the end zone all 3 times.
Right. And Adam, you talk about defensively. I think we expected Josh Freeman to have a better football game, and after the initial touchdown pass that he threw on their opening drive, he really started to struggle from that standpoint, and Texas Tech holds Kansas State under 300 yards of total offense.
Right. As Mike Leach made sure to point out Monday during the Big 12 coaches teleconference, that Kansas State only scored 2 touchdowns in which they had to drive the length of the field. I believe there were 2 drives that were 80 yards or longer. Other than that, they really didn't generate a whole lot. Ron Prince had heaped a lot of praise on the Red Raiders defense and on defensive coordinator Ruffin McNeil. Talked about how big the Red Raiders were, how well they were playing, how sound they were. So I think that was another good performance. You look at the scoreboard and say, well, they gave up 28 points, but it wasn't really all in the defense.
It was also a game in which they had to overcome some adversity, because Kansas State came out and looked very hot, was really clicking there in that first series, 4 plays, and they're in the end zone for a touchdown. Then the failed 4th and 1 by Tech gives Kansas State another opportunity for a touchdown. At that time, it's 14-14, and after its first 3 possessions, K-State had 111 yards, and the crowd was into it. 43,000 fans there at the start. They were thinking that this might be a back-and-forth game that might go into the 4th quarter, and the defense came back at that point and showed some composure and had 2 straight 3-and-outs after they gave up the 2nd touchdown, and after that was pretty well in control for the most part the rest of the way.
Right, and I think we kind of predicted Josh Freeman has trouble when he gets put under pressure. He did it in the Louisville game, and we definitely saw it here, and I think for me it really showed on 3rd down. Kansas State was 2 of 12 in 3rd down conversions. They really disrupted that offense.
Yeah, and the thing with Freeman is, and I forget how many interceptions there were, not many, but there were several interception opportunities that Tech players had that they simply had balls hit them in the hands and they dropped.
Right. And Adam, we talk about this game as it concludes. Is there any concerns that you see right now for Texas Tech coming off this game going into the week against Nebraska?
Yeah, not really. I think it was a pretty good performance by the Red Raiders. I know that Ruffin McNeil wasn't too happy about the touchdown drive they gave up to start the second half. At that point you could say, well, the game's kind of in hand. But, you know, it's something against the better teams, against the upper echelon teams. They can't afford to have lapses for even one series.
Right, you know, and Don, you know, and being around the team this week and kind of talking with players and coaches, you know, what's their mindset now going into what is getting ready to be the ugly part of their Big 12 conference schedule?
Well, I think what they're concerned about right now is just continuing to pile up a bunch of victories. I think this team is very aware of how far you can plummet down the national rankings if you lose a football game. I think the schedule sets up real well for them. It's kind of neatly divided into segments because in the non-conference schedule, you didn't really have, with the exception of Nevada, you didn't really have another team that was a serious threat to upset them. And now on the front end of the Big 12 conference schedule, you get what I would classify as 3 programs that are all in transition, Nebraska and Texas A&M. Certainly or that the next couple of weeks because you have first-year coaches trying to put in new systems and also trying to, drastically upgrade a shortage of talent that Nebraska and Texas A&M have gone through. And I think Kansas State also a little bit less so, but also still kind of a team in transition with Ron Prince being a third-year guy.
Right.
Players aren't going to say it, of course, but they should definitely be a 7-0 football team when they get ready to go to Kansas on October 25th.
Right, guys, and speaking of Nebraska and their new first-year head coach, Bo Pelini, we're going to talk about the Cornhuskers and their loss to Missouri and then coming into Lubbock this week to take on the Red Raiders, where last time they didn't really have a fun trip. They gave up 70 points to Texas Tech, and I'm sure they're going to remember that. But we'll talk about Nebraska when we get back right here on the Red Raider Report.